Hi guys, few days ago I broke my shop vac. I think that I used it too much, so it stopped working, and I was trying to fix it by opening it up and try to find the problem, but I couldn't find it. I think that something inside the motor got burnt. But one thing that I noticed when I opened it, that the impeller of the shop vac here is so small, and I think that with this small impeller it cannot move too much air. Like almost anyone on internet will say that if you Google it. So I think that I don't want to buy another shop vac to replace this one. I was taking a look at the dust collector, like the really big one for woodworking shop, but the good dust collector are really expensive, so I had to find something that is better than the shop vac, but not as expensive as the real dust collector. And here's what I found. A small leaf blower that I bought brand new on Amazon for $20. Those small leaf blower, usually they can create the airflow at the speed of 150 miles per hour, and also they can move air around 300 to 500 cubic feet per minute. So it's a lot better compared to the shop vac that only can move between like 30 or 70 cubic feet per minute. And my idea is to replace the top part of the shop vac with this leaf blower. So I will install it like this, so it will suck the air inside the shop vac and blow it out here, and hopefully it will be a lot more powerful compared to the original shop vac. So now I'm going to have to make a plate to cover this part, and also with a hole in the middle that I can install the leaf blower on it. And that is about it. And because the shop vac already have all type of setup for the filter and also for the bag to collect the dust. So let me just figure out a way to make that plate that fit in here, and then I'm going to use all the holes that already exist on this cover to fix that plate on here. And I think that is the most important thing. The other part is to fix this leaf blower on that plate will be very easy. This is the other part of the shop vac that can fit on this, like this. So I will use this to draw the template. I just take a piece of cardboard, I put it on here, and draw the big hole here. I will cut the hole just a bit bigger than this. Yeah, so far so good. Now I'm just going to draw some place to cut here, so it can slide all the way down very roughly, or the place that stop it to slide all the way down. So just draw around it. Now I have this edge is touching the surface of the cardboard, so I can just draw the outline here. Now I have this outline here, but this outline is for this edge, is outside here. I want the plate to fit inside this edge, so I can make it to touch this surface and seal it. So I will have to measure the offset between this edge and draw the outline inside here. I don't know if you can see it, but it is about 6 millimeters. I just draw the outline that is offset roughly about 6 millimeters. I don't know. I will trim it later. It's almost perfect on the first try. I only need to trim some place that is really tight. Next step, I will take this cardboard and transfer the outline to a piece of plywood. Now I have the outline on this piece of plywood. I will try to cut along the outline using my jigsaw. Not too bad. I will try to cut another one just like this. That's it. It was pretty easy to cut these two pieces. I will try to fit this piece in this area of the cover. I just put it in here. Wherever I need to trim, I just mark it with the pen. And I will trim it with my Dremel tool. I also need to trim this edge so it stays inside here so I can seal it with the silicone coat later. I cut it a bit too deep here. There's a little crack right here, but I think it's not a big deal. I will seal it with the silicone coat later. Next step, I will try to figure out how to fix the leaf blower on this before I fix this plate on the cover. The difficult thing about fixing this leaf blower onto this surface is that it has this air port that is kind of like sticking out. So I would have to make a hole on this surface. And also this part is kind of complicated. And also it will be really hard to seal if I try to make another hole here just for this part. So that's why I make this second plate, that I will trim this plate around here. So it will include this part. And the second plate will be only from here to here. And that second plate will lay on top of the first plate that will be fixed on the cover. So now I'm going to have to measure the dimension of this part and make a hole through both of the plate. And the diameter of this part is about 114 millimeter. Now this part will be 12. This side will be about 20 or 21 millimeter. 126 distance from here to here. Now I have all the dimension of this part. I will design a hole on computer and use my CNC machine to make that hole. If you don't have a CNC machine, you can just draw or print the layout of the hole on here and then cut it with your jigsaw. But for me, it will be a lot easier using the CNC machine. I will cut the hole through the two pieces in one round. That way the hole will be aligned. One thing to notice that this part is not centered into this surface. So if I want to center the leaf blower into this surface, I would have to make the hole that is a bit shaped on the side. I just try to center it here, and then I just roughly mark a few points along this line, just going to go through the center of that hole. This will be the center of the hole that I will make on these two pieces. And I want to make the hole on both the pieces in one cut, so I won't have to fix them together. I will drill the two holes around here to fix the two pieces together, and two other holes that are close to the edge, so later on I can use those holes to align the two pieces. I have the hole made here. Now I will have to trim off this part on the top plate, so this part of the leaf blower doesn't block it from go all the way down, just like this. Next step, I will have to drill some holes here to fit this leaf blower onto this plate using some screw, but I will have to pay attention that the holes that I will drill will be at the places that the impeller not going to hit the screw. This part is empty, so I can drill one hole here. This part is big and the impeller is around here, so I can drill a hole around here and one hole around here. That way the hole will be far away from the impeller and that will be safe. So I just mark the place for the hole like really roughly. Next step, I will drill the holes at the mark that I made. Now the hole I drilled on this piece of plywood, I will use it as drill guide to drill all the holes on the plastic of the leaf blower. I will use this type of screw to fix the leaf blower to this piece of plywood, so make sure that the screw is bigger than the hole and it can cut the thread itself in here when going in. I think this will be just fine. Next step, I will put these two pieces together again. I will use these two holes to realign them. I will use a bigger drill bit to drill through these three holes. Now I will glue these two plates together. I will use some shorter screw to fix the two plates together. And just to make sure, I will use some C-clamp to press the two pieces together. Next step is just to be patient and wait for the glue to cure. I think that the glue is set, so I will fix the leaf blower on this plate. I will do it very slowly just to make sure that the plastic doesn't crack. You don't need to tighten it too tight, just make sure that you will seal everything with the silicone coat. I will try to seal it both inside and outside. I will try to push the coke all the way into the crack. Now I will also try to seal it from the outside. It doesn't look really pretty, but I hope that it will be sealed. I will wait for the silicone to dry a little bit before I fix this setup on the cover of the shop vac. To fix this setup on the cover of the shop vac, I just push this plate in this area and then I will flip it over, drill some hole and use the screw to fix everything together. I will use the original screw that I got from this shop vac to fix that plate on here. Now I will have to try to seal everything around here with the silicone coke. I'm not the best at this, the silicone surface looked a bit messy, but I hope that everything is sealed. Now I will wait for the silicone to dry and then I'm ready to try this shop vac. I waited overnight so the silicone is dry. I'm ready to put this to test now. Let me just plug it in and turn it on. Let's see how it works. It is louder than the shop vac, but the good news is that it seems to be able to move a lot of air. I can feel a lot of suction over here at the air intake port. So now let me just try to install the hose and clean up this area a little bit. I don't know what happened. Once I installed the hose, the airflow seemed to be reduced a lot, and also the suction is not that great. It is a lot weaker compared to the original shop vac. So let me just check to see what happened. After checking around, I'm not sure if my theory is right, but I think that the impeller of this leaf blower is only designed to move air, not to force air to go into one direction. So when I install the hose, it reduced the air intake. This leaf blower cannot really force the air to go this way and put the air in through the hose. So I think that I will have to modify the impeller or make one myself. So the next step, I would have to uninstall this leaf blower, open it up and see what I can do with the impeller. What I can see here that the impeller have two sides. This side is to pull the air in from this side, and this side is pull the air from underneath. And I think that is one of the reasons that this leaf blower is not really efficient for vacuum. And also for the impeller, it doesn't have anything to cover on this side, so the air won't be able to go back out here instead of go into here to blow out. And that might be the second reason. I think that I would have to make my own impeller. Let me just measure all the dimension, go on the computer, make a design, and hopefully I will be able to make it with my CNC machine. I will try to make the new impeller using aluminum, but if your machine cannot cut aluminum, you can also try to use 3mm thick plywood. I will use one of the small bit to make small details on the piece. It is 1mm diameter flat end mill. I only have one bit like this, so to make sure that the bit not going to break, I will spray some water mixed to it to cool it down and also clear the aluminum chips. This piece is the base of the impeller. It will mute without any problem. But the aluminum chips are everywhere and it's really hard to clean up without the vacuum. So I really need to make this vacuum tool work so I can clean up everything later. Here are all the pieces that I need to make the impeller. I have a base plate, I have the top plate, 2 thin spacer, 2 thick spacer, and 6 pieces of rectangle like this. Those rectangle I will clean up the surface later. All the small holes here, I will have to clean them up or drill through using a 3mm drill bit. These two pieces, one piece I will drill through with a 3mm drill bit. The second one I will drill through using 2.5mm drill bit, and then I will make the thread using the M3 tab. On those thick pieces of spacer, I had to bore the middle hole here a bit bigger to 8mm because somehow my CNC always undercut the holes. I have everything ready here, so let's put together the impeller. Just take one of the thin spacer. You will need 4 of the long M3 bolts, 20 to 25mm length. I will use 2 first. Put one of the thick spacer, the one that doesn't have the thread, on the other side of the plate. Put the other thin spacer on top. Make sure that the flat edges are all aligned. And then put this one on top and tighten the bolt. Then I just tighten the other 2 bolts. You will need 6 of those stand-up spacers. For me, I use 40mm length. Depends on the size of your impeller pin. For example, this side is 35mm, just where I designed it. The height here is 42mm, so the length of this will be 40mm. So it will be 2mm off compared to the length of this rectangle. For the next step, I will need 12 of the M3 bolts that have the same length. For me, I will use 8mm. I use those short M3 bolts to fix those stand-up rods on this plate. Next step, I just put top plate on here. Put the bolt in and turn a few turns, not too tight, just to keep this plate in place. Now I will have to try to slide the rectangle in here. Keep it in place with this plate. Now I can start to tighten the bolt. Before really tightening, you should adjust the position of the pin. Make sure that they slide in the slot. I have the 3 impeller here. The one that I built is a combination of these two. It have a top plate like this one, and the height of this impeller is about equal to this one. So hopefully it will work better than those two. Now I will try to install this impeller on the motor. I just realized one thing, that the motor have this piece of plastic on top here. And if I push the impeller all the way down here, the head of the bolt might hit this plate. So I think that I will have to trim off this plastic piece a little bit. I will use my Dremel tool. Hopefully this will be enough, so I'm just going to install the impeller on here. My CNC is pretty good, but it's not perfect, so I think that I will have to pound it in a little bit. I pound the impeller all the way in, and it can turn really easily. Now I will install the nuts on here, and then I will put the leaf blower back together. I got a little problem here that this impeller is too high. It touched this plate when I push it in. So I think that I don't need this thin spacer at the bottom. So now I will have to uninstall the impeller, take out this thin spacer, and then put everything back together. Now I will put this spacer on this side. Now the impeller fits just right in here. It doesn't hit anything. So now I can really put everything back together. The leaf blower looks like as it was before. Let me just plug this in quickly and let's see how it works as a blower. It still works really well as blower. Now let me just install it on the shop vac and see how it vacuums. I was testing the blower a little bit more and something really dangerous happened. One of the pins here just broke off and fly out, and it hit the shaft of the blower and broke this piece, as you can see. So I would have to glue it back together using some super glue. But now I know that this impeller is not really safe to use. I would have to find a way to secure all the pins on the impeller. I think that I will use my TIG welder. You probably don't know that I have one because I haven't used it for more than 2 years. Now I will have to practice welding again, and hopefully I will be able to make this impeller safe to use. I will only TIG weld a few points, just enough to make sure that this impeller is not going to break again. This is my TIG welder. It's Lotus brand. It's not the best, but it has TIG AC so I can weld some aluminum. So let me just weld the impeller very quickly together. The good news is that my welder is still working, but I made some really ugly joints here. I will have to clean them up using my Dremel tools. I hope that all the welding and grinding doesn't unbalance this impeller too much. If it does, it will create a lot of vibration when the motor is working. But anyway, I just need to install it back on and try it again. Once again, I have the leaf blower installed on the shop vac. Now I can really test how it works. A few things that I can say about this, that is still really loud. The suction is better than before compared to the original impeller, but it's not really impressive. I feel like it's just about the level of the shop vac. I think that the impeller size is small and it's heavy, so the motor cannot really turn at the high speed at the original shop vac, and that's why it's not really powerful as I expected. I think that it works okay. I can use it for a little time, but I think that the trade-off between noise level and the power is not really worthy. You probably don't want to do this. Now I know that I can make my own impeller. I think that I will make another dust collector that is a bit bigger, more powerful and quieter compared to the shop vac or this one. That I will think about it. But now let me just show you quickly how it works cleaning up the aluminum chips on my machine. As you can see that I left a big mess here. As you can see that it works okay. But I think that it's not as good as the shop vac eventually. So I definitely will build another dust collector to replace this one. Right now I'm really disappointed with the project. So converting leaf blower to a dust collector is a no. You probably shouldn't do it.